at budgets and organization objectives. So the learning objective today, the main aim is to be able to assess budgets, for you guys to be able to assess budgets and the ability to support organization objectives. So the learning outcome at the end of this lesson, students should be able to identify how a budget can be produced, taking into account financial constraints and achievement of target and accounting convention. You should be able to assess a budget, and you guys should be able to identify how a budget for a complex organization can support organization objectives and target, while it's taking into account financial constraint and accounting convention. So, introduction. Budgeting, let's say, is the art of the way organization measure what they want to achieve. Like, different organizations have different budget. Like, is a way they measure what they want to achieve in the future. So you plan, you understand, you plan what you want to achieve next week, next month, or next year. So most organizations plan what they want to achieve. So they use budgeting to do that. Also, it's a key tool in planning and integrating activities like controlling expenditure, allocating funds, indicating performance against target, and achieving strategic aims. Like, most organizations use the budget like a benchmark of doing anything. And most organization budget is tied or linked to their organization mission and vision statement, and also their objectives. So, and some people, they'll tell you, we've got budget for this amount of people, but unfortunately we are spending more than what we budgeted for. Also, drawing up a budget involves people skills, such as negotiating and listening, as well as numeric skill. Like, in doing budget, like I have the opportunity to drop a budget. I'll tell you what most organizations do. Like, I'm a treasurer in my local parish. So every financial year, we drop our budget. And how do we draw our budget? We draw our budget using 2% increase. So, and sometimes we talk with other departments. The media team will talk to them. The guys, the youth department will talk to them. The Sunday school department will talk to them. So we drop our budget using incremental budget of 2%, and we'll have a benchmark for every approval or every amount that will be spent. So you will need to negotiate with each of the heads and, let's say, sub-heads of different departments, and also numeric skills, like how to calculate and how to come up with the percentage you need. Just like when I was teaching you guys about comparative analysis, which is we're doing the horizontal analysis. So I showed you how many percentage, for example, sales or revenue have, how many percentage they have for total asset or the current asset. So you need to work on those percentage. You must know how to do horizontal analysis, just like that. If you use that to do your budget, you'll be fine to plan for your budget for the next coming year or in the future. Is there any question, guys? I'll be available to answer any question. So if I'm teaching and I'm asking, do you understand, or is there any question, or what I'm doing, does it make sense? I would like to get a response, even if it's someone to say yes, or just type on the box, we are okay, or we need you to explain this part for us very well. That would be much appreciated. There's a message.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. I think there is a message here. Amani said someone add me to the WhatsApp group. Okay. Amani wants you guys to add, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, him or her, to, I don't know, sorry to say this. To
Okay.
Okay, to add her in the WhatsApp group. So if you're in the WhatsApp group, you can just copy the number and add her. Thank you. So let's continue. Oh, there's another message again. Okay, this is how Peter Nick also wants you guys to add her two into the group. So you need to add your colleagues. Also, Olushola wants to be added into the group. I think the person in charge of the group, was it Ugo? I know there's a guy that posed the message. I think it should be Ugo, and unfortunately, he's not on today. But I don't know what to say. You guys, he's your colleague, so you should be able to get in touch with him. I don't have his details. So let's continue. Definition. A budget is a statement of expected expenditure and income that has been allocated under a set of headings for a set period of time. Like I said earlier on, in budgeting, what most organizations do, they've got different departments, different units, different heads. So what they do, for example, for admin expenses, they've got the amount. For salary and wages, they've got amount. For stationaries is also another head. They've got amount for that. So what they do is that they put, for example, they allocate £5,000 for stationery every 12 months or every calendar year. They had £50,000 for wages. They had £25,000 for admin expenses. So what they do is that they work towards that. So some organizations have a budget, but unfortunately, sometimes they spend beyond the budgeted amount, and sometimes they have excess. So in each organization, when it comes to the end of the financial year, if they have more money, they'll say we've got surplus in the budget for this year. If they have less, that means the deficit, they have decrease or they overspent that year, something like that. So the two key purposes of a budget are to demonstrate the financial implication of an organization or a department proposed strategy and plan. So, like I said earlier on, most organizations, what do? they come up with their proposed budget, and they make sure it is in line with what they are into, like into their mission statement, their objectives, and things like that. Their mission statement, vision statement, things like that. Also, another key purpose of a budget is for the organization to be able to use the budget as a basis for control. Like they use it to manage their funds or something like that. Okay. Okay, I think Sam have been able to, there's a link, guys. There's a link in the chat box for your WhatsApp group. There's a link in the chat box. So any of you that want to join, you could just click the link, and or you could copy it, click it, and just add yourself, things like that. There's a link there. So for the likes of Olushola, Amani, and the other person, you could just click and add yourself. So like I said, some organization, they use it for control basis, like they use it to control their income and expenditure. I was opportune to manage a company account, and I found out that in the area of stationaries, we had a budget of £5,000. And towards the second quarter of the year, we spent nearly £3,000. And I told them, it's not going to continue. If it continues, at the end of the year, we're going to spend close to £10,000. This is just the second quarter of the year, and we're struggling with finance. There's not much money coming in. I told them, look at what's happening. We can't continue like this. So I spoke to the member of the board, and when we're doing our board meeting, we had to come into agreement that any payment exceeding £500, any payment below £500, I can make the payment, but any payment above £500 needs to be discussed in each of the monthly board meetings before approval will be given, because we don't want to shoot above our budget. So that was what happened, and we're able to, control the budget, and we're able to meet up with some of our expenses and things like that. Also, budgets are frequently drawn up annually based on the organization's strategy and the plans for the coming year. For example, we know what is happening now, this current pandemic, since last year. So many organizations, as they are planning or coming up with their budget, what they are doing now is they put COVID-19 as part of their plan. So they'll say, okay, for example, our forecasted sales normally during normal period, we used to make sales of over £2 million. But because of COVID last year, we made just maybe £50,000 instead of £2 million. So this year, I think the COVID will still be there. Since the COVID is still in most countries, we still believe COVID is still going to affect our business too, because of the lockdown restrictions and things like that. So what they'll still do, they'll reduce the £50,000 to maybe £45,000, or increase it by maybe 2% or 3%, say, okay, 52 or 55% or 50 something percent. You understand? So when preparing the budget, most people look into, okay, what is going to happen? What should we be expecting? They don't just sit down and just drop a budget like that. No, you need to come up with things the organization need, to put in place. So guys, is there any question?
I think we're good. We can proceed, I guess.
I didn't hear you. Sorry. You said what?
We're good. We can proceed, please.
Okay. Okay. All clear at the moment. Okay, good. So let's proceed. Action. Let's look at this. In preparing a budget, you need to put some things into consideration. For example, you need to have a checklist before doing a budget. One of the action checklists is for you to identify the key plans and objectives for the organization. For example, the key objectives need to be identified so that you have a clear understanding about the key priorities which must be considered when preparing your budget. Like, you don't just go into drafting the budget. You need to look, what do we need to do? For example, a budget for growth or a budget intended to maintain the current position. This will affect the way you draw up your figures. Like I said earlier on, like the COVID-19, many organizations must recognize the fact that COVID-19 have been disturbing a lot of businesses. Although some few business made a lot of profits last year and this year, and they're still making a lot of profit, but majority of the businesses did not make profit. Majority of the businesses, there's only few businesses were able to survive. So in drawing up the budget, you need to look into that. Also, another thing you need to consider is to be aware of the organization policies and procedures. So like managers from across the organization who are involved in the budgeting, maybe inform into managers from across the organization who are involved in the budgeting may decide to form into a budget committee. Like, most organizations have what they call budget committee. Most organizations have what they call staff in charge of budget. They call it like principal officer in charge of budget or things like that. Some call them budget committee. So like in each department, each head, they have someone representing that department. So they meet sometime quarterly, or sometimes they meet on a yearly basis. So depends. And these people, if they meet, they try to establish procedures and timetable for the development of the budget. Also, they have the responsibility to decide general policy affecting the budget, such as inflation rate and things like that. Also, they try to complete budget forms, like they try to complete the budget. They try to delegate this within their own section, like delegate somebody in charge of production budget, delegate somebody in charge of manufacturing budget, things like that. Also, they try to receive review from people. Like, they try to look at reviews from maybe from their colleagues. They collect review from independent auditors. They collect reviews from their customers and things like that. And they also suggest revision, like try to revise any policies that need to be considered when producing budget. Also, they recommend and they accept the budget to senior management. So organization may also have a budgeting manual. Like most organizations have what they call budgeting manual. Like it's a manual that contains a lot of things, the timeline, the date, and when budget will be the draft. They have what they call the draft budget, when you have the draft budget and the final budget. Also, this budget manual, which could typically outline the organization objective and relate to budgeting, specific procedure to be followed in the preparation of budget, the reporting mechanism to be adapted, and the various budgeting responsibility across the organization. Is there any question before I proceed to the next slide?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think there's a chat. Okay, there's a question by Sam. So does the budgeting team create the manual or only implement it? This is a good question. The budgeting team, Sam, if you're listening to me, the budgeting team, they have the responsibility to come up with the manual, depending on the type of organization. I'll give you an instance. Like, I'll come up with, sorry, I'm a religious person, so I'll come up with churches. Please pardon me. So in some churches, like they've got the headquarters, the general headquarters. And most of these churches, some of them have their own like district, like a kind of diocese, things like that. Some call it presbytery, some call it regional head or region. So sometimes the headquarter come up with circular, tell them this is what we want. Meanwhile, the local branch have their own budgeting manual. So sometimes they work in line with the headquarters manual. In some organization where they only have maybe one subsidiary or two subsidiaries, you understand? So the main head office come up with their own budget and it goes round to everybody. And in some organizations, the local branches come up with their own budget manual for the year. And in implementing it, it does not fall in the hands of the budgeting team. Implementation is for everybody in the organization. The only thing that is there is most people in the budget team always put an eye to the budget. Because if you don't put an eye to the budget, at the end of the day, you might shoot above your budget, or you might be below the budget, the expenditure for the budget or the income of the budget. So it's the responsibility of the directors, like some call them board of directors, some call themselves stakeholders or shareholders, like depending on the organization. So it's their responsibility, the board of directors, to look, to try to implement it, because they have the responsibility to make sure the person in charge, the budgeting officer or the head of the budget team, come up with good report when they meet. Okay, Sam, thank you. So let's continue. Now, okay, no, the next slide. That's me. No, it's not moving. Okay. The next thing is to do what is to determine the key or limiting factor. So some key factors will limit growth in all organizations. Common examples are competitive environment, volume of sales, number of customers, and manufacturing plant available, or things like that. Also, you could put even COVID. You could also put, for example, Brexit. We know the United Kingdom are not part of the common market again. They are not with the EU, the European Union. So that alone could affect some organizations' sales. Could also affect, is also one of the limiting factors for some organizations, things like that. So things like, will I say, things like disaster, or things like, oh, I've mentioned COVID, things like regulations or new regulations could also be a key or limiting factor. There is no point when planning the budget. We have significant, you need to look into some significance for planning and budgeting. So there is no point drawing up a budget based on high volume of sales. No, for example. So if this is either unrealistic or impartial, the preparation of a forecast covering general economic condition and trend that affect the organization can be a good starting point for preparing a budget. You know, like I said, if you used to make normally on a normal year sales of, for example, sales of £1 million, but because of COVID, you were not able to make that £1 million on an average. You were making up to £600 to £700. So in doing your next year budget, you'll be looking at, oh, I can't budget 1 million. So let me just put maybe 6 or 500 or even 750 because of the COVID. So you look at the trend when you're making your budget, look at limiting factor, you look at the trend, but you don't consider some trend like looking between, for example, 2018, there was nothing like COVID-19. 2019, there was nothing like COVID-19, but COVID-19 came, we had COVID-19 in 2020. So 2020 budget and 2019 budget and 2018 budget, you find out that there's a difference. If you look into some company account, you find out some company like some grocery shops, grocery industries, they were not able to make good profit. I was just having a look at some company like Tesco, as that I looked at their 2020 accounts. I was just saying, so these guys were not even making money in 2020 compared to 2019 and 2018 budget. So sometimes the trend alone is something else. Also, what is coming in preparing the budget, you need to look at the range of income and the income sources that are generated. Like, you look at your funding, or is the money allocated at the beginning of each year? So you look into different things. You look at the range of income sources, like how do we get our income? Do we look into sales? Do we get it from outsourcing? Do we get it from maybe fixed assets, or do we get it from our customers. So you look at where your money is coming from, and when preparing the budget, you really need to get in all the money you need. Like, you note them down. Like, for example, there are some organizations, they're into renters. So most of their buildings, they rent some part of it. So they look, okay, apart from our sales, which source of income do we have? We have rent, we have donations. So key into most of those donations. Like, the in preparing my organization account, we have three sources of income. We get donations, we get rent of properties, renters of properties, we get things from gift aid and offerings and things like that. So when preparing the budget, we look, okay, if we have over two properties and each month we get a rent of this amount, I think if we have it for the next 12 months, is a fixed amount, because rents don't go up apart from maybe after a year or 2 years time. So for the 12 month, it's fixed till maybe after anytime you decide to put up the fee. So you look at how much of this is generated and how much money is guaranteed to come in every month or every week or every, depending on your income, and what financing options are available for you. That's what you need to consider. You also look at the next financial year, because if you fail to plan, that means you're planning to fail. So the key thing is for you to plan ahead. Like, budgeting is all about you planning. So you come up with some realistic figure. You don't need to come up with, oh, I think the rent is £500 every month. I think if we put it for 700 or 800, I think a lot of people hire property. No, it might not even come up. But if you leave it that same amount, which many people have been renting the property for 500, that property is going to sell. You're going to get your income at when due. So do you guys have any questions before I move to the next slide? All clear? Okay. Let me move to the next one. Okay, the next thing you need to look is what is going in. Estimate your expected costs and break them down under different headings. Like, their range of cost heading usually include maybe staffing. For example, staffing, you've got the wages, you've got pension, you've got training. Like premises, you've got what? Renters, repairs, and eating. And also accompanying legal duties, like if we got any case in the court, we need to hire a lawyer. We need to pay for legal fees and things like that. And also the material used, like stationaries, telephone, raw materials, things like that. Also any other business costs, like financing, insurance, company tax, subscription, and things like that. So the general principle is to divide the budget up under whether the headings seems sensible to you. But as organization often group headings together, sometimes you just see some company put general expenses, and general expenses might include both premises, material expenses, staffing. They'll just put it like that. So depending on how they group the headings together. try to ensure that there is a reasonable degree of consistency across the company. Also, they look at the earnings used in the previous year and they use them as a starting point. Like, for example, last year we had 5 staff and we spent maybe £80,000 or £50,000 for the 5 staff. I think this year we'll still continue with 5 staffs and we'll spend same amount of money. But sometimes it might not be the case. Sometimes you might decide to spend more or less. So it depends. Also, thinking through the fixed and variable costs. Your finance department should be able to help you to identify your fixed and variable costs. Many people don't know the difference between fixed and variable costs. I will explain. There are some costs that don't change. They are just fixed. The amount is fixed. There are some costs that varies on different things, maybe the number of hours, for example, depending on if you have some staff that like working maybe 40 hours a week or 3 hours or 20 hours a week. Those ones are part of your variable costs because they are not really fixed. These costs, you need to pay them in time. So there are 2 types of costs, which are one thing you need to know is the fixed costs. And these fixed costs, these are costs that will need to be met no matter how much extra work the organization handles. So permanent staff costs, for example, if you have a staff on a permanent basis, their hours will be fixed. So I know the normal, most organization, for permanent staff, is it 40 hours or 37.5 hours? But if they are casual staff, casual staff, you could get, some could work 10 hours, some could work 50 hours a week, depends. So for variable costs, these are costs that depend on the organization level of work, such as the quantity of raw material purchases or the amount of advertising that is undertaken. So, like I said, your finance department should be able to help you to identify your fixed and your variable costs. Also, let's look at this. One of the things you need to consider is you need to decide how to draw up the budget. I know there are different ways of drawing the budget. You could come up with maybe incremental budgeting, which is based on using last year figures, or zero-based budgeting. We start from this crash, like, you're starting from zero. You understand? So there are different approaches when you want to drop the budget. Whichever method is used, the budget should be prepared in the same format that will be used for reporting in the upcoming period. In addition, an underlying list of assumptions should be prepared and documented as part of the budget processes, as this makes it easier to explain vacancies in due course. The incremental budgeting is based on using last year figures. If you use this method, you should base the budget on how last year went. Like, you need to consider everything about the last year, with, of course, an adjustment to take into consideration will be your inflation. You need to consider inflation. This is a quick and simple way of putting a first draft of a budget together. And is also a means to, will I say, to do a benchmark, a means of, okay, last year we only spent £50,000 on our expenditure. We won't pass more than £50,000 this year, hopefully, if things don't go wrong. This is a quick and simple way of, yeah. And also, you keep adding to your mistake. Like, sometimes you look at, oh, we made mistake in this aspect, we spend too much in this aspect, we need to reduce the spending in stationaries, everybody needs to go online, everybody staff work from home, things like that. Also, if you are using an incremental approach in preparing your budget, you need to work out how far last year's budget actually reflected the reality. So you need to write down the budget, the way it actually worked, and what you actually spent, the variance, which is the difference, and how far was the budget, and why did you use the budget at that time. Also, zero-based budgeting. Let me talk about zero-based budgeting, which starts from the scratch and considers each cost from the start of each year. Also, you try to analyze each cost according to how the picture looks now, rather than referring back to the previous year budget. This is a fundamental approach which requires objectives to be redefined and every item to be what justified. So every item in the zero-based budget need to be justified, and you need to come up with an amount, and you need to picture and look at the amount. Is this realistic figure? Is this going to work out? So to some people, zero-based budgeting is difficult, but you see the incremental budgeting is like one of the best, because you already know what you did last year. You'll be counting on, okay, I already have an idea of most of these courses, things like that. So guys, is there any question? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
I think we're good. We can proceed, please.
okay. Clear for now. Yes, no problem as for now. Okay. I think after this slide, we'll go for our 5 minutes break. So I'll just explain this aspect. We'll be off for 5 minutes. So another thing you need to consider is what you collect all the information you need to set this year budget. Like, you make sure you speak to all stakeholders before drawing up the budget. Like, some organization, what they do is that they make sure they speak to all the stakeholders before drawing up the budget, to ensure that they all have opportunity to provide input, and that nothing has been missed. So when drawing up a departmental budget, they keep relationship with other departments in mind. For example, it is unrealistic to set the manufacturing budget before a sales budget has been at least drafted. So you need to come up with the sales budget first before going up with the manufacturing budget. So if you are setting a budget for maintenance, forecast of level of the factory activities need to be constituted. Like you need to come up with the forecast of the level of the factory activity before you be able to set the maintenance budget. Such dependency may be coordinated at a more senior level. So like some budget, what they do is that they try to get in touch with most of the heads of each department, or by finance department, try to look at ways of getting things done. So budgeting is likely to be an irritative process because you need to talk to some people. You need to sometimes. Will I say is a good process? Budgeting process is a good process, but sometimes if you have some people in some department that refuse to give you some information or refuse, because I've been in an organization where one department refused giving me more details, and I just told my boss, I don't think I'll need to chase these people up. We'll just come up with our budget for the year and we'll just put a benchmark for them. Since they spent £50,000 last year, we'll give them. So sometimes you need to try to speak to all the stakeholders, but also at that process, it's not all the stakeholders will be able to give you more information of what you need. So you try to assess all external and internal factors that may have a bearing on performance when preparing the budget. This may include the rate of inflation, bank lending rates, trade prospect forecasting for the following year, and whether you wish to stimulate the market, like try to look for other alternatives. Budgeting for growth also means having resources available to handle the current demand, increase in level of the business. So it takes care of a lot of things. Budget, you see, take care of a lot of things. So ask some important question. When preparing your budget, you need to ask some important questions, and you need to keep detailed note on why particular figures have been. No, sorry. You need to ask important questions like the income, the strategic objectives, or any other. If there's any other changes, you need to ask questions about what is the income, or am I clear about the outgoings, like what is going out from the company? Am I clear about what are the likely changes to be? Have I accurately forecast the number of people required to meet objectives? Am I clear about strategic objectives and how they are affected by maybe any other things? So are there any factors on horizontal that might have serious implication for the budget? So like in doing this, you need to ask questions. You don't just come up with the figures. No. Is the admin cost okay? You ask. So drawing up the budget, you need to keep details notes on why particular figures have been recorded in the budget. Like, this may seem obvious when you write the figure down, but you are asked to discuss them in 6 months' time. You may not be able to remember what you've calculated. So it's better to just put them down, build in a contingency allowance. You try to just come up with some figures and you try to understand why this figure is there. So do you guys have any questions to ask? Are you okay with this explanation so far? Okay, okay, okay. So, okay. So, guys, we'll go for our breakdown. So we'll be back in next 19. That'll be 7:10. So we'll be back by 7:10. Okay, guys, I guess many of us are back.
Yes.
Okay, I could see. Okay, yes, we're back. So let's continue. Don't worry, we'll finish on time today. So we'll be able to have time to check our coursework, the assignment that is needed. So I think I've explained this. Yes, I've explained all this. Just the next slide. So the other thing you need to consider is when doing your budget, you need to build in budget control parameters. Like you or your finance department will need to track income and expenditure against the budget. This may be monthly or weekly or even daily income or expenditure, depending on the nature of the business. Like if your business gets monthly income or weekly income or daily income, or so you need to put a parameter like we know we used to get income less than, we used to get income of, for example, £100 every day, then our expenditure must not be up to £100. It must be less than £100, because if we spend more than £100, that means we'll not be able to meet up the budget, because it's what you get in, that's what you spend. So if you're getting in £100, you can't spend more than £100. In fact, there will not be even money for you to spend more than that in some instances. Also, another thing is for you to do what? To present the budget. If you are required to make a presentation on the budget to senior managers or colleagues in an organization, in addition to producing a written statement, make sure that you give a realistic picture, like a realistic figures are there in the budget, including possible downtime, like possible things that might happen, like in case you could have will I call it, there's this scenario, worst case scenario. Okay, in case we don't meet up our income, this is another source of income for us to get, rather than just attempting to impress the people. So it's always good if the budget looks optimistic or the budget does not look good. Just tell them the budget look optimistic and tell them why, explain why. Before presenting the budget, ensure that you have buy-in from key contributors. Like you speak to key contributors and they've been able to tell you, I think this is what is realistic, this is what we've been working on, and this is what we know we could achieve. So is there any question? I don't think there's any question. We just need to move. So in preparing the budget, managers like you guys should avoid the following. You should avoid drawing up a budget without involving others. You need to involve other departments, because you won't be there to monitor the budget. You'll not be there to evaluate the budget. So you need to involve others. You can't do implementation yourself. You can't draw up the budget. You can't do anything yourself. You need to get figures from other people. Failing to evaluate their assumptions, you try to come up with something. So you should avoid failing to evaluate people's assumption. Also, you should avoid being over optimistic. Don't be, I'm 100% sure this is good. No, nobody planned COVID-19 is going to happen 2020. In fact, if someone come up with COVID-19, will I say, prediction, a lot of people will look at this person. What are you trying? Although a guy predicted it, but nobody was serious about it. He just said, oh, COVID, there's a disaster that is going to come into the world, blah, blah, blah. Everything will not be working. People will be dying. It's going to affect people's lives, affect businesses. But we didn't consider such kind of thing. So you don't try to be so optimistic or very optimistic, because something might happen. Unforeseen circumstances might happen. A tragedy might happen that you can't control, And also you should avoid simply applying percentage changes to the previous budget without good justification. If you're putting a percentage, you should have good justification. Why should this be increased by 20%? Why should this be reduced by 40%? Why should we increase our staff? Why should we, and why should we? Also, you should avoid collecting too little information on which to base the budget, on how you base the budget. Like, you need to collect many information as possible. They said if you are not informed, you'll be deformed. So the better information you get, the more enlightenment, or the more ideas, or the more, will I say, the more information you get, the more you understand, or the more better the budget will be. Because if you have good information, you'll be able to put in a realistic figure and not just guess or come up with figures off your head. So let's look at the purpose of budgeting. One of the purposes of budgeting is what? Planning. So a budgeting process forces the business to look into the future. So, like I've been saying for the past 1 hour thereabout, about planning. So you don't just sit down and come up with figures. No, you need to plan. You need to come up with figures, Also, another thing you need to do is control. The purpose of budgeting is what? Control. Actual results are compared with against the budgeted or the action taken as appropriate. Like, you put in control. Like, for example, like I said earlier on, if you have a budget of for maintenance for £50, and for last year and this year, you could put, okay, since we spent £50 for maintenance of our equipment, we should put another 50, or let's give them maybe because of inflation or any other thing, let's give them £55. So you put that control. If they start spending up to £40, up to £45, you need to notify them, let them know you've spent more than half of it. You let the maintenance department know you've spent more than half of your budget. So if you want to continue with this, you might end up spending above your budget. So it's better you have a control, and appropriate actions need to be put in place. Like, this is what we need to do. Also, another purpose is for what? For communication purposes. The budget is a formal communication channel that allows junior and senior staff to converse. Like in budgeting process, you see both the senior managers used to talk to some of the management trainee, because most jobs are done by the low-level staff. The high level, the middle level managers, what they are into is just direct controlling. But most of the jobs are done by the low-level managers. They are the one doing everything as far as I'm concerned. Those guys, the CEOs, don't even know what's happening. They will just in their office, you come with figures. Sometimes they might want to ask questions, we want to go and inspect or check, but most of the jobs are done by these other guys. So budget alone allow both junior and senior staff to communicate. Also, do you guys have any questions to ask before I move to the next? Yes, I expect. I don't think there is any question for now, so I'll just continue. Also, okay, the next one now. Co-coordination, like one of the purposes for co-coordination, like budget allow coordination of all part of the businesses toward a common corporate good. Like if they produce a budget, you see the manufacturing guys will be doing their work, the guys in the production line. For example, I'm talking about a manufacturing company. You see every part will be working together. Like if you're doing a budget, there's what we call the cash budget, the production budget, the manufacturing budget, you know, sales budget. So if I'm preparing budget for 6 months for a manufacturing company, I'll come first of all with the sales budget, cash budget, you know, production budget. We'll have all the budget in place, you know. Also, evaluation. The responsibility accounting of each organization, they've got what they call the budget centers. So each of these has a manager, and this manager have the responsibility for its performance. There's what we call there's what they call responsibility accounting. I'll explain it in details. Each organization have what they call, each organization have different departments. So this each department, they've got what they call managers. So these managers, their work is to ensure that that department or that unit they are heading are responsible for its performance. So if anything goes wrong, they'll still owe the managers or the heads of the department. So in terms of evaluation, if they want to evaluate if they want to use budget to evaluate it, they'll look at, okay, what is happening? What is our spending? This department, they've been spending too much money for the period of 10 months or 3 months or 4 months. So the manager is also responsible for any mishap in the organization. So let's continue. Another purpose of budgets is what of budgeting is what? Delegation. Managers may be involved in setting the budget. Extra responsibility may motivate managers, like management involvement may also result into more realistic target. Like depends on how you coordinate the budget. So like I talked about having a budget committee. So each department have a representative in the budget committee when preparing the budget, drawing up the budget. So management involvement is a good thing because it's going to motivate most of the managers involved in the business. So management, for them to have a realistic target, if they delegate it to people, people will be able to come up with good ideas or good figures or be able to drop the budget, things like that. So another thing is what motivation and authorization. The budget may be used as a target for managers to aim for rewards. They could use it as a form of motivation. So rewards should be given for operating within or under budgeted level of expenditure. This act as a motivator for managers. I was working with one organization one time, and the policy then was, if your department did not, if you have a budget of, for example, £10,000 a year and you use less than £5,000, the balance, 50% of the balance will be shared among the staff. Then the organization take back the remaining balance of 50%. So that alone was a good motivation. So like we in the unit that used to print and do a lot of photocopies, we stopped doing that because we don't want to buy more papers. We tend to go online, tell everybody, even the approval, your letters, everything will be authorized online. You don't need to print and write or apply for anything. No, we ensure we save a lot of money, in order to get the 50% of anything that is left. So another thing there is authorization. The budget act as a formal method of authorization for a manager for expenditure, hiring staff, and the pursuit of plans contained within the budget. So like many organizations use it as a form of authorization. Okay, do you guys have any question? Because I've got about 2 videos to play, but I doubt if I'm playing it here, you guys will be able to watch it, or should I just give you the links for you guys to watch the videos? I know one is about 10 minutes, one is about 15 minutes, that should be. So guys, thank you. Is there any questions for me to answer, or do you have anything for me to explain?
Um, hey guys. So, thanks very much for the lecture so far, Professor Jonah. I just wanted to like share a bit of experience from my time working as a professional, especially in the marketing field. I found that while trying to make budgets, I know you had mentioned, I think you had mentioned 2 cases where you're either starting from scratch or basically building off
Yeah.
from
Zero-based
data.
budget. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So basically for me, what I found that works most, and I know you had also mentioned if you were going to have an increment, a percentage increment, there should be a basis for that, and ideally I've always worked with a 20% markup. And by 20% markup, it's basically if the expected budget is, let's say, 50,000 pounds, there would always be a 20% markup on that 50,000 pounds. And the reason for that is because we are not so certain about whatever outcomes could happen. A classic example is COVID, where um, even when a lot of projects and a lot of tasks have to be fulfilled, COVID is in the way, and you're not so sure where you're getting funds from. And I've just found that having a 20% markup on the original budget has always helped to cushion um, unforeseeable circumstances, because it wouldn't always be nice if you have to go back to the board or go back to stakeholders and ask for an increase in budgets, let's say at the middle of the year or something, or at the middle of the month. And just trying to put this out there, like in real life cases, at least for the bit that I've had to experience myself, having that markup, it may not be 20%, but having a percentage window where you are able to stomach quite a bit of unforeseeable circumstances would usually help in working with stakeholders and trying to meet targets. Yeah, I really just thought I should put that out there for based on my previous experiences.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one, Ugo. I would love to hear from some of you. I know most of you are professionals. Most of you, or not, if not all of you, are professionals. And I know many of you must have had the opportunity or must have worked as a budget or in a finance related position. So I would like to hear from you guys. Ugo, I've said it all, although, but I would like to, I like learning from my students, not just me giving out. So Ugo said in his place of work, they use, is it 20% markup? So depend on the policy or depending on, like we use only 2% increase is because of the inflation rate. So depending on what your organization or your company decide, depending on them. It's not, they don't have a general, will I say, a fix that it must be increased. If you're doing incremental budget, it must be 10%, must be, no, depending on what you guys agreed, depending on what the board agree and what the organization have in stock for guys in the budget committee to work on. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Is it Shara? I'll start mentioning your name. Sam, Elena, Olushola, the MSJ, Amani. There are two videos. Well, it's like I'm not getting any questions or any message from you guys. I'll play the video and I'll see if you guys will be able to watch it. But if you can't, then I'll give you the link for you guys to watch it. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
What is budgetary control? Budgetary control is the process by which budgets are prepared for the future period.
I just saw this message. Okay, no question. Shara said, I'm a student, so as of now, I don't have much expenses working in any working place. Don't worry, very soon you'll finish your studies and start working. Don't worry, Shara.
And are compared with the actual performance for finding out variances, if any. The comparison of budgeted figures with actual figures will help them make. What is budgetary control? Budgetary control is the process by which budgets are prepared for the future period and are compared with the actual performance for finding out variances, if any. The comparison of budgeted figures with actual figures will help the management to find out variances and take corrective actions without any delay. Main objectives of budgetary control. The main objectives of budgetary control are as follows. 1. Defining the objectives of the enterprise. 2. Providing plans for achieving the objectives so defined. 3. Coordinating the activities of various departments. 4. Operating various departments and cost centers economically and efficiently. 5. Increasing the profitability by eliminating waste. 6. Centralizing the control system. 7. Correcting variances from SIT standards. 8. Fixing the responsibility of various individuals in the enterprise. General objectives of budgetary control. The very objective of budgetary control is the allocation of responsibility with budgeted figures and develops a basis for the measurement of performance to find the efficiency of business operation. The general objectives of the budgetary control are presented below. 1. Planning. A budget is a plan that is prepared before a definite period of time to attain given objective. The budgetary control compels the management at all levels to prepare the business activities to be performed in the days to come. The reason is that a budget is prepared and implemented with the following objectives. A budget is prepared after careful study and research, thereby proper guidance is given to the executives. A budget is used as mechanism through which management's objectives and policies are affected. A budget is used as a communication bridge between the top management executives and operatives in an organization. The operatives are implementing policies of top management. Out of available many alternatives, a suitable profitable course of action is selected. A budget discloses the policy of the organization in numerical terms and attainable in a specific time. 2. Coordination. Coordination means an orderly arrangement of business activities in the pursuit of a common purpose. The business activities are properly coordinated and achieved with the help of budgetary control technique. The reason is that the line manager alone does not prepare a budget. A budget has close relationship with other budgets. For example, the sales manager prepares sales budget on the basis of production budget. Likewise, the production budget is prepared on the basis of raw materials budget, direct labor hours budget, and machine hours budget. Hence, the departmental budgets are interrelated and interdependent. A master budget is prepared through integration of various budgets. In other words, a business organization is running through the coordination of various functional area executives. Effective coordination is also based on adequate communication network. Every employee of the organization should be informed in advance what is planned, how it is planned, and when and by whom it is to be accomplished. In this way, coordination is being achieved through budgetary control technique. 3. Control. Nothing can be achieved without exercising control. Mere framing and communicating the objectives does not bring anything to the organization. Hence, there is a need of control mechanisms such as budgetary control that is used to achieve the objectives of organization. Budgetary control places the responsibility of achieving targets on the executives who participated in the budgetary planning function. With regard to the budgetary control, the actual performance of each functional area is measured and compared with per determined target, that is, budget. Based on the comparison, if there is any difference, the reasons for such differences were investigated, analyzed, and corrective action taken. The budgetary control makes every executives become cost conscious. Hence, there is no much difficulty on the part of management to take severe action on executives. In other words, proper control can be exercised over expenditure. Advantages of budgetary control. Budgetary control has become an important tool of an organization to control costs and to maximize profits. Some of the advantages of budgetary control are: 3. It secures better coordination among various departments. 2. Budgetary control fixes targets. Each and every department is forced to work efficiently to reach the target. Thus, it is an effective method of controlling the activities of various departments of a business unit. 3. It secures better coordination among various departments. 4. In case the performance is below expectation, budgetary control helps the management in finding up the responsibility. 5. It helps in reducing the cost of production by eliminating the wasteful expenditure. 6. By promoting cost consciousness among the employees, budgetary control brings in efficiency and economy. 7. Budgetary control facilitates centralized control with decentralized activity. 8. As everything is planned and provided in advance, it helps in smooth running of business enterprise. 9. It tells the management as to where action is required for solving problems without delay. Disadvantages or limitations of budgetary control. The following are the limitations of budgetary control. 1. It is really difficult to prepare the budgets accurately under inflationary conditions. The budgets are prepared on the basis of estimates. If the estimates are wrong, the budgets will be misleading. Hence, the success of budgetary control is fully depending upon the degree of accuracy of estimates. 2. Budget involves a heavy expenditure which small business concerns cannot afford. The budgets may be revised from time to time because of changed conditions. If so, it leads to more administration expenses. If the budgets are revised frequently, the employees can lose their faith in budgeting. 3. Budgets are prepared for the future period, which is always uncertain. In future, conditions may change which will upset the budgets. Thus, future uncertainties minimize the utility of budgetary control system. 4. Budgetary control is only a management tool. It cannot replace management in decision-making because it is not a substitute for management. 5. The success of budgetary control depends upon the support of the top management. If there is lack of support from top management, then this will fail. 6. A budgetary program is a rigid one. The deviations are found out by comparing actual performance with budgeted figures. The deviations are accruing due to changed conditions. If so, the management cannot fix responsibility on any employees. 7. Budgets may serve as constraints on managerial initiative because every employee tries to achieve the budgeted figures. 8. The budgetary control requires active participation and cooperation in preparation and implementation among the employees at all levels. But, in practice, such type of participation and cooperation are not easily available to the organization. 9. The budgetary control develops conflicts among the line managers. The reason is that every manager wants to get more resource allocation through budgets, shirk responsibility, and blames others for pitfalls. 10. A budget cannot be used as a substitute for management. According to Welsh, a budget is not designed to reduce the managerial function to a formula. It is a managerial tool. 11. A small business organization cannot afford the employment of budgetary control as a cost control technique since it involves more expenses. 12. The preparation of budgets requires specialized staff. Such specialized staff is not available adequately to the organization. 13. The cost of installing and operating a budgetary control system should be commensurate with the benefits derived therefrom. But, in practice, it is not like so. 14. If the budgetary control system is badly implemented, the employees are frustrated and cause antagonism. These things lead to low morale among the employees. Despite the above limitations of budgetary control system, the budget is an essential one to an organization for exercising effective control on employees.
Okay. Stop sharing. Okay, guys. We'll give you the link for you guys. For some of you that wants the link, let's skip. If you have any questions, you could ask before I call it a day. I think we're meeting tomorrow. That's the video link, the YouTube video link. So if they sorry, I sent it to Shira. I was meant to send it to everybody. So I send the link. I've sent it now to everybody. Okay, guys, if there's no question, if there's no question, I think I'll call it a day. We'll meet tomorrow, same time tomorrow. Okay.
These classes are for everybody, or just who are doing the finance courses?
I don't know. I think if you're doing, are you doing finance for managers?
No, I am doing level 7 in accounting and finance.
I think it's part of. There's a module called finance for manager.
No.
Well, I know there's a module called finance for managers. That's what. What modules are you doing, Shira?
This is Zon. I am supposed to be doing portfolio management.
Okay, portfolio
Hi.
management. Okay. Okay, continue. I'm listening.
Okay. So it should be portfolio management, global finance strategy, investment analysis, strategic audit, corporate reporting, and strategic audit, financial management, strategic financial management, strategic audit, and global finance and strategy.
Okay. Well,
So maybe it's strategic financial management then?
yes,
That's the
because
one that's
the next tomorrow topic will be on capital budgeting, things like it's like more of
okay.
financial management, so strategic financial, like ARR, IRR, and things like that. So it's better.
Okay,
that
payback
lecture-
period and those kind of stuff.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll call it a day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow fully. So thank you guys, and bye for now, and see you tomorrow. Someone want to say something? Is it F Fabi Allah? Is it Mabi Allah? Sorry if I
Yes, hello.
yeah, I
Can you
can hear
hear
you.
me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the call. It was so deep. I want to say that normally you said that there were 2 videos, no?
Yes, there are
But
two
you
videos.
send the link only for one.
Okay, I'll send you the link again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
See you
well,
tomorrow.
yes. To direct message everyone in the meeting. That's the second link.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. So thank you and bye.
All right, do have a lovely evening. Bye bye.
You too. Bye, Ugo.